Let's talk through deliverables now. We're going to start going through the monthly, quarterly, annual deliverables. Month-end closing, who should own that?
Accounting.
Okay.
The CFO. It's a finance function.
Monthly revenue, cost, and cash forecast, who owns that?
I think when you're talking cash forecast, again, I think the ownership is finance, but there's a lot of inputs across the business because you got revenue and different things.
It's almost also like, is it, what's revenue, Joyce, right? Kind of, if you talk to a finance audience, you have obviously the recognized revenue and all of those things. And that sits with finance, right? But who owns the sales forecast, the bookings forecast, kind of the next quarter sales forecast? I think that sits more under the commercial roles.
And I would agree. And that's why I said, when you say cash forecasting, if you're getting into cash, I think it sits with finance.
Yeah.
If you're more into bookings, the sales bookings, I think that sits more under go-to-market, and you're going to have coordination regardless.
What about payroll and new hire and departures planning?
No, thanks. Not fun. Oh, wait, that's not the answer you wanted. I mean, I think your payroll, it's your HR, but your hiring plan is really your senior leadership. Finance helps develop it. But I think that's your executive team together that really sets that roadmap, and that feeds into the financials. I don't think it's owned by one organization.
I think hiring plan for me, like practically speaking, equals budget in many times for like many leaders, right? So I would actually say it's being set by the finance function in coordination with everyone else. And then obviously in the operational reality, can you have a conversation about moving a headcount from A to B, or kind of hiring early because you expect someone to leave? And that is a conversation that I always had to have with a CFO because of good reason, because the budget is set and I didn't want to cause trouble, right? So I think in terms of the hiring plan, I think that's a finance thing.
And I agree it's a finance, but all I mean by that is you got to make sure the executive, they're the ones who's setting what that plan is going to look like, but operationally finance is the one help coordinating it with the business, having all those discussions like Tony mentioned, like, hey, we want to move this person, it's going to cost us a little bit more, but here's the benefit. You want to talk to finance before you do that. I always hated, and I've had it happen more than once, they get the approval from HR, hire somebody, and then all of a sudden you find out and you've blown your budget, and you do realize we're not going to hit our numbers for the year. Those are always fun conversations.
So how often should you be re-looking at your budget and the forecast to make sure your hiring plan is still relevant?
So I think you should be looking at it on a quarterly level, honestly. And so you have two different forces here at play. One is someone dropping in and out of the company for performance reasons, or they're going to another job, or maternity, and all those kind of things. And that you operationally to kind of, it's a day-to-day, monthly thing to manage and to kind of shift resources and budget around. But really the longer term stuff, in many businesses, it so much depends on, are you going to be able to hit those revenue numbers, right? Are you able to kind of actually hit those milestones on the revenue side in order then to, have a funding market fit? Kind of, you're running out of cash at that point of time. Are you ready to kind of raise the next round? And I think that kind of conversation should happen at least on a quarterly level, because that's also where you have, reasonable and good new data you can kind of look at a couple of quarters out, right? Kind of, did you hit the top funnel milestones you wanted to achieve? Did you hit the revenue milestones you wanted to achieve? And what kind of information will, that actually give you for the quarters to come? By the way, the link is still there. Growbox.com can help you with that. But that's where I think kind of this conversation, practically speaking, in the boardroom and the C-level team starts. It's like, are we going to hit our top line? And if yes, then we can have an easier conversation about the budget and the cost side. If not, we need to rethink that. And I think this is something you should be doing on a quarterly level.
Yeah, I would say quarterly at a minimum. I think a rolling forecast is a good way to go. And depending on the business and how quick the change is, often I think monthly makes sense. But when I tend to go to monthly, I like to see more of an R&O process than, spending a bunch of time and bottoms up. So I think it depends on the process you've put in place, how quickly your business is changing, right? We see all kinds of different answers. There isn't one way, but I do believe at least minimum quarterly. I tend to like monthly, or at least a couple times a quarter. But, I've seen it done a number of different ways over my career. And I think a lot depends on the business, how quick the change is, how carefully If things are going really well, you're not seeing a lot of change, which generally isn't the case with a startup. Okay, you may have a little less frequent. But I tend to think with the startup where there's a lot of hiring, there's a lot of movement, probably monthly, but definitely at least quarterly.
And I think kind of to put the RevOps perspective on this here, it's there are also hires you can save without actually needing to go through some painful event of freezing a budget and so forth, right? So if you're not hitting a top line number in Q1, top line mean top funnel number actually, you can probably say, you know what, do we need to hire those AEs in Q2 that then are ramping throughout Q4? Maybe we can save those. And the same is actually also for CSMs. Well, if we aren't bringing in those customers, do we actually need those customers, success managers, in 2, 3, 6 months from now? So I think this is not always a hostile conversation that needs to happen when you need to kind of correct down. There are many opportunities to save costs that actually then just would be idle resources sitting around if you don't hit those revenue targets.